Hey there, welcome back to the Schwowin's Nest. If you haven't yet subscribed to my channel, I'd love it if you could hit that red button and stick around a while. This next project is a companion to the bird, so I'm going to show you both of them at the end. I have a bunch of these wooden apples from the Dollar Tree. Oh my gosh, I think I've had them forever. And I'm just going to be pulling off the little stem of the apple. Sometimes you can pull them out, but then I had to grab my little snips and then just snip some of them off. Then I took my handy rotary tool and sanded down the rest of the stem so it would be a nice flat bottom. I have been using this little rotary tool a lot more lately simply because I have a hard time gripping things. So trying to sand something this small would be like horrific for me to do. It would also be very painful. So I've decided that this rotary tool is going to be sitting on the edge of my desk, always fully charged and always at the ready to help me with my craft projects. I have a couple of them listed in my Amazon store if you're interested in taking a look. I figured out how many apples I would need to go all the way around the bottom of this wood round. And I don't remember what this was from. I think it might have been a cup holder at one point where you can see there's a little screw hole in the center. And then I think there was some kind of pole in there. Anyway, I'm going to use it for this. And I'm making a sweet little riser for my bird. This is the underside of the riser. The beads are going to be at the bottom. So I'm going to paint the beads and this bottom portion black. I didn't have to give it 2 coats because you're really not going to see it. But if that bothers you and you need to do 2 coats, by all means, go ahead. Then I started painting the beads with my bigger brush, and then I switched to a smaller, finer pointed brush to get around the outside edges and make sure that all of the beads were black. You're probably noticing that I'm using the same colors over and over for my projects today. And that is a tip that I can share with you. If you want all of your decor to look like it belongs together, then using the same colors is the best way to achieve that. All of these projects are going to be displayed in my master bedroom once I have it all completed. I have a black headboard and I want to bring in some wood touches, so that's why I'm doing all of these dark wood things. I want my bedroom to look dark and moody and be very cozy and comfortable. So I want to bring in some of these black elements to achieve that look. This is that same burnt umber paint again, and you can see how red and orange it is. It's really not a burnt umber. To me, a burnt umber is more of like a chocolate brown kind of look, but I'm going to go ahead with this one, give it 2 coats, let them dry completely in between because this is bamboo, and bamboo kind of has a little bit of a slick surface to it all the time. So I'm going to make sure that it's fully dry before I add anything else. The second coat made this color so much richer, and I love the look of it. Dollar Tree has a couple of styles of mushrooms, and I chose these because they're more straight. The other ones have a little bit of a pointed top. I've also got this little square box from Michaels, and I'm going to just glue on 4 of the little mushrooms and create feet for this box. Next, I'm going to give it a couple of coats of white chalk paint all over, including the mushrooms.
I have a bunch of these little flower stickers. They did come from Temu, but I know that Dollar Tree has a bunch of different types of stickers too. What I'm doing here is just cutting the white outline. These are not clear stickers. They have a white solid background, so I just want to clean that up a little bit. I'm going to place three of the same flowers that are just a little bit of different sizes and shapes into the center. I like to use the little poker tool from the Dollar Tree here. I think it's a scoring tool, and that just helps to get that backing off of the sticker. My fingernails are too thick with all the nail polish I have, so this works out for me really well. I also added three little leaves, and now I'm just cutting out another little white floral to put in the center. I've been wanting to use washi tape and just try to see how that works for designing and putting them on projects. So I have this little green and white plaid, and I'm just going to put that across the center of the sides all the way. Then I added some little strips of the washi tape on the inside by the florals. I played around with it a little bit. I had to pull some up because I didn't like how it was looking. And I finally just ended up doing some corner pieces. And then I think that turned out good. For the last step, I used some Mod Podge and put a generous layer on the stickers themselves and the washi tape. I wanted to make sure that they didn't peel up. And I also went around the rest of the project with it too, just to seal everything in and make sure that nothing will come off. I love how this little project turned out, and I think it's super cute. This project turned out really nice. This is just an old sign that my mom had. She didn't want it anymore. So I thought, you know what? This would make a great little sort of low tray. So I'm measuring in 2 inches from the outside. And now I'm just going to eyeball my measurement at the top and the bottom. I am using the full size Jenga blocks, but you could definitely use the Dollar Tree tumbling tower blocks for this. You'd probably be able to use maybe 4 of them instead. You'll get the same effect. If you wanted, you could use some wood glue or the Weld Bond glue that I usually have. But for this one, because we're looking at raw wood to raw wood, the hot glue will hold perfectly. You really don't have to worry about anything falling apart when you're using wood and hot glue. So I'm going to just glue two of them together because I wanted it to be a nice sturdy leg. And then I'm going to do the same thing on the other side. Using my black chalk paint again, I'm just going to go over the top layer to cover up that laundry sign. The edges and the sides, they're already black, they're already distressed, so I don't even have to do anything with that. And what I'm doing with my brush here is just very gently kind of flicking it off the end so I don't cover up any of that distressing that's already there. I'm going to turn this into a nice farmhouse, a classic farmhouse piece by putting a grain sack stripe on it. So this will be my spacer. This is what I'm going to be peeling off and applying the paint to. So I'll take two other pieces of tape and put them on either side of this one and then pull that center piece up. Using a smaller brush and some of my favorite grayish paint, which is a cross between beige and gray, I'm going to just do a heavy dry brush on it. I want to see some of the black coming through, but I want to make sure that you know that this is going to be a grain sack stripe. So you can see how I'm doing it. I'm not dabbing off any of the excess paint, but I am using a very light touch onto the stripe. The paint needs to dry before I can do anything else with it, but I can pull off the painter's tape. And look what happened. I got some really awesome distressing. Some of that black paint came off. It pulled off some of the blue that was on the original sign and left a beige color. I was so excited when that happened, and I thought, great, what a little happy accident. Grain sack stripe is a little hard to explain, but I hope you can see what I'm doing. So this piece of tape is sitting about a quarter of an inch past the original painted stripe. And I'll do the same thing on the bottom. I'm going to have it just about a quarter of an inch past because I need that to stay black. Then I'll take two more pieces of tape and create another quarter inch or so stripe. This is where the paint is going to be. So I'm going to do the same effect now, a little bit of paint on the brush. I'm not going to dab it off, and I'm going to do a heavy dry brush on these stripes. And then I'll be able to just take everything off. I don't have to wait until the paint dries. I just have to be careful when I pull off the tape. And wait till you see more of the happy accident. So when I pulled off that first piece of tape, there wasn't much that came off, but look at here. I got a big chunk off at the end, and it was so exciting. I'm sitting here clapping my hands as I'm watching this because I just thought it was amazing. So I'm going to peel the other tape off as well. And I do get a little bit happening there. But then I'm going to take my tape, I'm going to roll it onto itself, and I'm going to start using the painter's tape to pull up some of the black paint and get more of that happy accident. So this is what I'm going to do. I'm going to just use that tape and pull off some of the paint, and it is working a little bit. And then I started really pushing my fingers onto it to get even more paint to come off. And then I gave it a good rip, like when you rip off a Band-Aid. That wasn't working too well. So I ended up starting to use my fingernails a little bit so I could get even more of the paint off. And that seemed to work really well. Out of all my riser and tray and stand projects today, I think this is my favorite, probably because it has a farmhouse look with those grain sack stripes.
The next two projects are very similar, so I'm going to show you how to do one completely, and then I'll just show you a little bit of the difference in the second one. I'm using some of these plank boards that you can get from the Dollar Tree, and I also have a couple of these little crates. Those were thrift store finds, but you could definitely use the ones that come from the Dollar Tree as well. You're probably noticing that I'm struggling a little bit with my miter shears. I have had these for probably about 5 years, and the blade is so ragged and dull. I really need to get a new set. So I do have some listed in my Amazon store, and I guess I have to take my own advice and grab myself a new pair. I'm just creating somewhat of a tag shape with these planks, and that is going to be the side pieces of my crates. Using my sanding block, I'm going to round out all of the edges. I don't want anything sharp on here, and I want it to look like it's been around for a while. So that's why I'm rounding everything out. I'm also going to be sanding off any little bits and pieces around the bottom edges because these are cut fairly smooth, but there are still a little bit of splinters here and there. These little crates are going to be really for display only, so I'm only using hot glue to assemble everything together. I used the lines of the crate there to put the hot glue on, and I'm just turning it around and gluing it into place. And I'll do the same thing for the other side and then for the other two pieces of wood that I'll be putting on the second crate. I'm using my miter shears one more time for this little spindle that I'm going to use as the handle, and I just needed to shorten it up a bit on both sides. It was cut a bit on an angle on both sides, so I'm just going to run it across some sandpaper until I get it in a better shape. I'm using just a little bit of hot glue on each end of the spindle, and then I'm going to, again, just eyeball the placement of it. Just very gently push out the side pieces so I can get the spindle in, hold it in place until the glue sets. But I also decided to put these tacks in, which I think would be a little bit better to give some extra security so this little handle doesn't break off. For the handle on the second crate, I only had one spindle, but I've got a ton of beads. So I grabbed a whole bunch of them and I'm going to feed them onto this small dowel. I'll add a dot of hot glue on the dowel itself to hold the last bead in place. And then I'm going to drill a hole on the side of each of the wood panels. I'm going to fit in the little dowel and then add some half beads on the outside to make it look finished. For the beaded crate, I'm going to be using a black gel stain. I'm going to just apply it in sections, wipe off the excess, and then continue on until I'm completed everything. I'm going to do it inside and out. The spindle crate is going to get a whitewash, so I'm using white chalk paint, and every once in a while I'm going to give it a mist with my mister and then wipe off the excess. For the spindle handle itself, I'm going to leave that its natural wood color, and I think both of these turned out super cute. Another product that I'm really enjoying using lately is Plaster of Paris. I get this big bag from my local dollar store for about $4, and it really goes a long way. And with Plaster of Paris, you can mix it to be nice and thick. You can mix it to be a pourable medium. It really depends just on how much water you're going to mix in with the powder. So I'm just mixing it up in a little bowl. I'm going to use this mold from IOD. It has the cow, the sheep, and the pig, and I'm going to be using the sheep. I want to be able to sort of spoon this into the mold like you see me doing, and I want it still to be able to be moved around. With clay, it's a little thicker, right? So you can just kind of mold it where you want it to be. But plaster of Paris tends to start drying fairly quickly. So I'm leaving enough water in there that I can move it around easily and fill in all the little feet and the head and make sure I can get all the details. It's already starting to set up, so I have the ability to take my spoon or my finger and just smooth it out a little bit better. I want to make sure that it's all nice and level at the top and that I don't have any bumps because I'm going to be gluing it onto a wooden box, so I want it to be as flat as possible. Plaster of Paris comes out very easily from any type of mold. Unfortunately, I ended up cracking those tiny little feet, and that actually happened with the clay too. I'm using hot glue and I'm going to place down my sheep where I want it to be, and then I'll be using a different type of glue to glue on the little feet. Hot glue wasn't holding it together. I started with that, but then I ended up using my Weld Bond glue and I just placed the glue underneath and then on top and then set it aside to dry for a good couple of hours. This wood box is something that I've had for a while. It has been painted white. I think I used it for a couple projects and now I'm repurposing it for this one. I'm also repurposing some of these wood egg cups, and these were the same ones as the first one that I used on the spindles. I love using these as little feet. Again, hot glue will hold these in place just fine on the bottom of the box. Now I'm just using my chalk paint in white to paint all of the bottom portion, including the little feet. And then I'm going to be refreshing the whole sides and top of the box as well, including the sheep. Now I'm going to be dry brushing some of this clay chalk paint on top of the sheep. I want it to pop out a little bit so you know it's there. I'm just going to be dabbing my brush into the paint and then wiping off a little bit of the excess and then just picking up all of that texture from the sheep. I'm going to be going around all of the edges. And then once I have the sheep the way I want it to look, I'm also going to do the rest of the box. Just a little bit around the edges. And then I started kind of adding a little bit more in the corners, areas where I felt that dirt and dust would accumulate and make it look a little bit weathered and old. While I was waiting for the plaster of Paris sheep to dry, I took some of these lavender pieces that I got from Walmart a few years ago, and I'm just giving them a light dusting of white chalk paint. They're a little bright for me, and I wanted them to look a little more muted. So, in some areas, there's going to be a little bit more white paint, and in others, there's not, but it doesn't really matter to me. I want these to look just a little bit lighter, and you can see the difference in the color right away. So just a few little spurts here and there. You can see how I'm just kind of dusting it. And I like to do this on greens, on florals, anywhere where I want the color to be just a little bit muted. I'm taking all of the sprigs apart and then I'm going to be adding them onto this plastic branch. This came from another type of greenery, and I'm always pulling the stems off because I like to make my own kind of greenery look. I don't necessarily like to leave the things the way they are when I get them from the store. Anyway, I'm going to be adding different sprigs of lavender and I'm creating a little tree. And that is what I'm going to be putting inside of my sheep box. Using a branch that already has all the little pieces that are sticking out that will hold the lavender branches is so much more convenient than having to use hot glue on everything. Now I can simply add some floral foam inside the box and then use the rest of it to just fill it up completely. This floral foam I got from a dear subscriber, and I want to thank her again for sending me all of the box of goodies that she did. I've been using this stuff for a couple of years now, and I hope you're still watching. If you are, thanks again. So I'm just going to be adding some more floral foam just to fill everything up so I don't have to worry about filling too much more with the moss that I'm going to be adding in there. Now all I have to do is push my tree down into the box and fill it with moss, and I'm good to go.
I really enjoy working with clay, but at the moment I have a really hard time kneading it with my hands. So I decided to try something different using the IOD clay molds that I have. I wanted to see if I could still get the same effect just using hot glue. And you know what? You can. I've got my hot glue gun set on high and I just make sure that I push enough in there and work very slowly so everything gets filled in. So I'm going to do these two small ones down at the bottom on this mold, and I have some other floral ones that I'm going to do on the other mold. The glue in these molds is now dry, and you can see how easy they pop out of the mold. I did try using this technique with some of my other molds, but if they're too deep, they don't come out and then you have too much cleanup to do. Now I'm going to take my glue gun and I'm going to add part of this garland. I'm going to make 4 of them because I'm going to be doing the same pattern twice on the project that I'm going to show you shortly.
So I've had this tray for a really long time, and it has the hearts on it like this. And for the longest time, I thought, you know what? I love the tray. I think it's really sweet. It was only $5 at the thrift store, but I don't like the hearts. But now I'm going to take the hearts and I'm going to do something to incorporate all of this and make it look French country. And I think that's going to turn out awesome.
Now I'm going to create a design using all of the hot glue molds that I just did. And this is going to be right around the heart, which will incorporate it into the design. Using hot glue, I'm going to apply all of these molds onto this wood crate, and then I'll repeat the steps for the other side. You will notice that not all of the molds are the perfect shape or size, and some of them have a little bit of a different outline, and that doesn't matter to me. I mean, I could have made it perfect, but you guys know me. I'm all about rustic, and if it's imperfect, I love it even more. Before I added anything to the crate, I did wipe it down and make sure that it was completely dry and full of debris. And what I'm doing now is just taking my white chalk paint. I've put it in a little cup and diluted it with some water because I want this to be a whitewashed effect. I just want to lighten up the wood a little bit. It's really dark on one side and then not dark on the other side. So I thought just creating a whitewash over it would just bring all of the colors together and make it look a little bit more distressed and a little bit more French country. Once I have the paint on in sections, I'm going to just wipe it off with a paper towel. And if I want to do another layer, I can. But I ended up just doing one layer of this. It turned out perfect and lightened it up just the right amount for what I was looking for. Now I need to do something with the molds. I don't want to leave them this sort of white grayish color. So I'm taking a small brush and my white chalk paint and I'm going to give them one coat. I'm going to cover everything, the sides, all of that with the chalk paint. It's not going to be full coverage, but I'm doing a technique on top of it so you won't even notice that. I wanted the embellishments to be kind of similar and blend in with the whitewashed wood that I have. So I'm taking a small chip brush and a tan colored just an acrylic paint. It doesn't matter, whatever kind you have will work. And what I'm doing is just dry brushing over the top. And I do apologize for the shadow that my hand is making. I think I was doing this at night. Anyway, you can kind of see that it's just highlighting all of the top areas. You could as well do a wax with this if you wanted to have the wax go into the crevices and then just wipe off the excess on the top. I'm just doing it the easy way and just dry brushing it on top.
These are two wooden shelves that you're supposed to hang on the wall and then fit some decor into, but I'm not really into that look. But when I see something that's unfinished wood, I know that there's going to be a really good project that I can figure out to do with them. So I've decided to make risers out of both of them. I went to my laser machine and I cut out the specific size that I would need to fit right at the bottom of each of these. And I'm going to use some hot glue to secure them in place. I'm going to use these little wooden egg cups that I sell on my Etsy shop. They're actually meant for sitting a little wooden egg in it, but I think they are perfect for little spindle feet and I use them a lot in my crafts. So I'm going to glue one of them on each of the corners of the large box. I wanted the smaller riser to be a little bit taller. I didn't want them to be the same size. So I usually like to use the Dollar Tree wooden dice. You get 3 in a pack. I didn't have any on hand. So I'm going into my stash and I find these wooden eggs. And I thought, you know what? This might just work. So I'm going to glue the bottom part of the egg right into my egg cup. And that's just going to create a little bit of a taller spindle look. Now I'll glue them on the same way that I did for the larger box, just in the corner. And I like to just line things up in the corner so none of the spindle foot sticks out past the edges of the project. That's just how I like to do it, but you can definitely do whatever you like.
I've already decided where I want these two risers to be in my home, so I'm going to paint them or stain them accordingly. So this large one is going into my kitchen dining area where I have a sort of cream and dark brown hutch. So I'm taking some of this gray stain. This is a water-based stain and I got it at my local hardware store and I'm putting it on full strength. In hindsight, I probably would have liked this to be a little bit lighter, but I still think it turned out amazing. So I'm going to just put the stain on with a regular brush and then I'm going to grab a paper towel and wipe off the excess. All the products that I'm using in this video and pretty much every video that I have are available on my Amazon store. Even though I've used these little spindle feet in a bunch of projects, I've actually never stained them. So this is a first for me. And I'm thinking that I really like the look of them, especially with this sort of gray stain. It turned out really pretty on them and it still shows a lot of the wood grain in the spindle itself. For the smaller riser, I painted it with one coat of this gray paint, and it's just a latex paint. I don't even know what color it was. I think it was one of those little samples. And now I'm just going to very gently and not very heavily add some of this crackling medium. I'm going to do it around the corners. I'm going to dribble it down a little bit on the edges. I'm going to add a little bit on the top and the sides, but I don't want this to have a really thick, chippy look on. I don't want it to be on the whole piece. So I'm just going to be experimenting with this and putting it where I think it's going to look good, where it would naturally wear, and see how it turns out. I used white chalk paint, and this is just a latex paint that I've added some talc to. And I'm going to go over everything just with one stroke. So with crackle medium, you have to make sure that you don't go over and over like we normally would if we're painting something. You go over it a few times. That's going to disturb the effect of the crackle. So you want to be very careful and just make sure you have your brush loaded as much as you need it to be, and then just go over it once, and that's it. Crackle is already starting, but I'm just going to grab my hair dryer and give it a little bit of a boost so I can show you what it looks like. And you can actually see the crackle starting to form. And as I said, I didn't put a lot on, so it's going to be very subtle. Here's a look at how they turned out and how I decorated them in my spaces. When I'm shopping at the Goodwill, I'm always looking for items that are a different shape. So rather than just getting the regular square tin or the tall canister one, I found this and it was an oval, really purple, bright colors, but definitely I knew I could do something with it. Now it is missing the lid, but I'm going to fix that up in a second. So I'm giving it a couple of coats of parchment chalk paint, and this is just sort of an beigey white color. I think it's really pretty, and I love to use this type of color when I'm doing more of a shabby chic look for my projects. I found these two pieces of paper in one of my paper packs, and I decided that I'm going to use this to embellish this tin. So I'm first going to just tear off all of the straight edges. I don't want anything to be straight. I want this to have more of a rustic kind of shabby look, like, some of the labels or the paper is already starting to wear off. So I'm going to just start tearing this into strips and making sure that I have all rounded edges. To attach these strips of paper to my tin, I'm going to use Mod Podge. But instead of putting it on the tin, I decided to put it on each of the pieces of paper because I didn't want to add any extra shine to my project. This way I can just take it and place it exactly where I want it to be. I do have a little bit of wiggle room if I get it in the wrong spot, but it was just a little bit more control of where the Mod Podge is going to be. I added a similar piece onto the back, and then I decided to go all the way around and have these pieces of paper just kind of overlap a little bit and then meet on either side. And this was the initial thought that I had for this project. I thought that might be too much paper on it and it might look a little silly, but I really like how it turned out. It's really unique and it's really pretty. Since the tin didn't have a lid, my trusty laser machine to the rescue, I created two ovals. I measured the inside of the tin. I created one that would fit right inside the tin and another one that was about a quarter of an inch larger. And this way, I'm going to be able to put the lid right on the tin. It's going to fit there and it's not going to fall off. I found this wood and metal handle in my stash, so I'm just going to use a really lot of hot glue to glue these two pieces together. And I think the lid really makes it look so much more high end. I wanted the lid to be a dark sort of walnut color. So what I did was take my already ready-made stain that I have in this little bottle from the Dollar Tree. The last time I used it, I added too much burnt umber and it turned out kind of on the reddish side. And that was for my little bird cutouts in my last video. So what I did was add a little bit of black and that just darkened it down just enough to give me a beautiful stain. So I'm going to be applying it and then using a paper towel to wipe it off again. I didn't like the contrasting wood color of the handle, so I'm taking the same stain and I'm just going to paint it on because literally it is just paint and water. So I'm just going to paint it on, let it dry, and I'm going to do the same for the gold handles and it's all going to blend in together beautifully. This last thrift flip is using this red vase. I think it was just probably from like a Teleflora or a florist, but I really loved the texture on it. The color, not so much. I'm grabbing this wood round, and I think this one was from the Dollar Tree. It was already painted a different color, so I'm just going to use it in this project. And now I've got these Scrabble letters, and I'm going to be gluing them on the long way. So instead of straight up and down like you would use them in the game itself, I'm just going to turn them so they're a little bit longer and they won't stick up too far over the edge of the round. And of course, I would never be lucky enough to have them fit completely perfect all the way around. So I just measured off this last one and I'm using my miter shears to just trim it and then it will fit perfectly. Miter shears are a crafter's must-have tool. So if you don't have one of these yet, head on over to my Amazon store. I've got a few different styles and prices for you to choose from. To glue these two together, I am going to just use my Weld Bond glue. It's my favorite. It glues absolutely everything together. Stone, ceramic, tile, plastic, wood, you name it. This is the glue to have in your stash. Again, listed in my Amazon store. I am going to use a little bit of hot glue in between, and you want to make sure you don't put the hot glue on the Weld Bond glue because that will just cancel them out. So I'm just going to be placing the stand or the vase right on top of the wood round, and this is going to be a beautiful riser. Once it's set up for a few minutes, I took it out to my garage, spray painted it with the same satin black, and here's how it turned out. I'm starting this project with this medium-sized terracotta pot, and this was a Dollar Tree purchase. I think they come in a pack of 2. I'm going to paint this with my flat black chalk paint, and I'm going to give it 2 coats. One thing I like about painting terracotta is that it dries really quickly. So by the time I was all the way around with the 1 coat, the first coat was dry and I could just continue painting. I'm also going to paint the inside of this because I want it to look finished. For the second part of this project, I'm taking this bamboo tray that I got at my local Dollarama store. I thought it was really unique because it has rounded edges and a little lip on it. So it's not anything that I had seen before. I'm going to be just using some tape and taping off a section so I can paint that part of it black. I am even going to go up around the lip of it, but I'm not going to go underneath. Once I was done with that, I decided it needed another little smaller stripe, so I'm going to tape that off and do the same thing. I don't know about you guys, but I still think that even after years of painting and using painter's tape and masking tape, the reveal is always the best part. Just seeing all of those nice crisp lines just makes it worthwhile. I've flipped the tray over and centered the pot, and I'm just going to make some small markings on all 4 corners of the pot. I know it doesn't have corners, but you know what I mean. And that's just going to give me the outline of where I can add my Gorilla glue to be able to attach these 2 together. I let it cure overnight, and this is how it turned out.
This crate was a great find for only $4.99 at the thrift store. It's huge. It's really well built, but it has some different decor on it that just isn't my style. I'm going to remove these little wood pieces, trying to do as little damage as possible to the bottom wood, but I will need to sand it just a little bit before I give it a couple of coats of Fusion Chalk Mineral Paint in the color Picket Fence. I went to my Cricut and I cut out the word storage just in these really thin letters. I'm going to place that on and then stencil it with a dark gray chalk paint, and this project is done. Really simple to do, but has a really big wow factor. I think it turned out amazing, and I love the combination of the wood with the white. This is a board that I used for the Christmas holidays. I had this hanging outside, and I'm going to repurpose it for a project that I have been wanting to do for a really long time. This is my inspiration. I've always wanted one of these trays over my tub, and this one is for $130 on Etsy. I know it's a handmade item, so I understand the price of it. It's really not that hard to take a piece of wood and add a couple of handles to it. The first thing I needed to do was sand it all down nice and smooth. This is a piece of old barnwood, so it's got a lot of little slivers and stuff in it. I'm using some 80 grit sandpaper with this sanding block, and I'm just going to go to town. This wood is super soft, so it was very easy to get it smooth really quickly. The first thing I did was cover up all the painted areas on this side with a couple of coats of brown chalk paint. I didn't make it perfect. You're not going to see it. I'm also taking some of these actual Jenga blocks, which are the large tumbling tower blocks, and I'm going to be gluing 2 pieces on each side, and then I'm going to do a double up. So I'll do 2 more on top of each. I've measured out what size I need for the sides of the tub. So on this side, it's about 2.5 inches. On the other side, it's about 3 3/4 inches. And that's to ensure that my board doesn't fall off into the tub. Using the same color of chalk paint, I'll give these wooden blocks a couple of coats too. The paint I'm using is from Rust-Oleum. It's their chalk paint and it's called Cocoa Bean. I have 2 silver rounded handles that I got from the thrift store. I'm giving them a couple of coats of satin black by Rust-Oleum, and this is just something you can pick up at any hardware store. I'm going to let them dry and then turn them over and do the underside as well. I want to just add a stain to the board. So this is a water-based homemade stain that I use all the time. I keep it in this little bottle, and it's just a combination of some browns like burnt umber, a little bit of gray, some black, and some water. And these are all just acrylic paints. Now, this ended up being a little bit deeper in color than I was expecting. I guess I just forgot that this board is so old that it just soaked everything up and it ended up being more of a solid brown color. When you look close, you can still see some of the wood grain poking through, but it really turned out more of a dark brown that I wanted it to. So next time I will have to make sure to have more water than less color in my stain. I did use a paper towel to wipe up any of the excess. And in hindsight, I probably could have used something like a baby wipe as well, just to kind of get back to a little bit more of the rustic wood. But I'm still really happy with how it turned out. I'm using the no nails again, and I'm just going to be adding a little bit to the bottom of each of the handles, and then I'll just push them in place where I need them to be. Again, I am just eyeballing this. I am not about the perfection in my decor. So if something is just a little bit off, I'm okay with that. But by all means, if you need it to be exact, then go ahead and grab your measuring tape and do what you got to do. Now you can see that there is a little bit of the glue sticking out, but once it was dry, this is so easy just to clean up with one of those little poking tools from the Dollar Tree, and I'll show you that here in a sec. I let the no nails dry for a couple of hours and then came in with this Dollar Tree scoring tool and very gently just pried off the glue. It wasn't difficult to do at all. Since this is going to be in a bathroom where there's lots of moisture and humidity, I'm giving it a couple of coats of some varathane. Now, this is an oil-based varathane, so that's why I'm using a sponge brush, because that's something that I can just toss. This is a gloss, but again, this wood is just soaking everything in that I didn't get any shine at all. It ends up being a matte look. I might at some point give it a couple more coats because I would like to see a little bit of some shine come through. It would also make it a lot easier to wipe it down and keep it clean if there was a little bit of a slick surface on it. But I have to say, even with the little glitches in this project, I'm really happy with how it turned out. I finally got myself a bathtub tray and I can't wait to use it. Thank you so much for spending some of your time with me today. I truly appreciate each and every one of you. Here's a couple other videos that might interest you too. Bye for now.